not?
Yeah, let's just get our
Okay.
little
Oh,
screen up.
Patty, you've got to enable that for me.
Thank you for the reminder. Should be good to go.
Okay. Yes, indeed. There we are. Okay. From the beginning, so nobody gets to see all the other. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. I know there's some of you who aren't familiar with the Conservancy, and Sue and I are both founding directors of the FRBC. And of course, our goal is to introduce plants that are new to North America, emphasizing North America, in fact, that it's the US and Canada. We have a lot of good relationships in Canada. And these are mostly plants that are threatened either in the wild, vulnerable in the wild, or in cultivation. There's a lot of cultivated plants that just either go out of favor for no particular reason other than whim, really, or one particular superb grower, gets old like we all are doing, and then that collection just dissipates. And we hope to, focus on things that are really worthwhile and try to get them in this country and maintain a living reference collection of these plants and get them distributed as broadly as possible to ensure their survival. So that's pretty much what lights us up. And we're going to show you a few plants tonight, maybe too many.
As always.
That we think fit this bill rather nicely.
We can probably mute or get rid of our video too.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So let's just get rid of the sidebar there.
Oh, stop. No, that's not right. All right.
We're getting a couple things sorted here.
There we go.
All right. Perfect. So this is our shade garden. Part of it anyway. Sue and I are both shade gardeners at heart, so we bought a piece of ground here in Port Townsend that didn't have a tree on it and had to construct a rather elaborate lath system, which we keep expanding on. This is a natural wetland here, seasonal. And so this is just
This was last year about this time, actually. It was February. Winter seems to always happen in February around here. January sort of blows by and it seems okay.
Although this picture would have been identical had it been taken 2 weeks ago, because this
That's
was
true.
this
did
was
get a lot of rain.
We still can't walk across there. It's quite wet. And then when it overflows, it just runs across our sales area. So this is in the winter. We're not, the nursery is not open for retail during the winter. And this last year, this is just how it looked, because we didn't open it all, and probably won't this coming year. So, and this is, a good snow for us. And we're expecting this to look exactly like this on Saturday.
We'll see.
Yeah. And so this Mahonia is a conservancy plant. It's important because this is one that Peter Cox of Glendoick, Scotland, collected in the Kangshan Mountains in China. And this was actually featured in one of the issues of the Plantsman in 2010 in an article by Roy Lancaster. Very cool Mahonia.
So, what do you do during the pandemic? I mean, you've got to entertain yourself somehow. I mean, obviously we were working hard in the nursery and there's always work to be done, but going for walks is always great. And I was motivating Kelly to walk because we were walking through our local brewery. And of course,
happy to go along.
We had to go plant hunting. And what did we see early last spring? But this gold foliage nettle coming up in the pathway. So even that could be exciting if you can't be traveling to China. At least you're finding gold nettles.
Yeah, we literally can't go anywhere without looking for plants. I'm sure everybody out there is the exact same way. It's a wonderful vice to have, I guess. Well, it's not a vice. It's a calling.
Obsession.
It's a calling and an obsession. But anyway, so we named this nettle fool's gold because as it matures, it turns back to green. So it's just this sort of spring ephemeral blast of gold, but just when you need it. So we're thinking that might actually be a moneymaker for those people who make nettle pesto. They can have something different.
But really, what we enjoyed about last summer was that we were actually able to do a bunch of hiking in our own Olympic mountains, and they're pretty special. So at least we did get up in the mountains. And here I am sitting up on this peak with Senna, our little girl, who's 4 years old and just could hike. Just we've never worn her out. Anyway, so we're looking at a beautiful view here, and the plants are great up here.
Yeah, and it was really wonderful to be able to, because the nursery was closed, we could go hiking midweek. So every week we did a day hike up into the Olympics, and this was one of our very favorite areas, right? This particular hike, it's one of the stiffest hikes climbs in the Olympics, but so worth it when you get up there.
And one of our endemics of the Olympics is Campanula piperi, and this is a particularly nice dark blue flowered form of it, but it just makes these mats in the crevices, and it's just really a special plant.
Yeah, and it really does need to grow right in almost solid rock in the smallest, thinnest crack there is, and so it just requires perfect conditions. Only grows in the Olympics.
And this is a really nice pale form. You don't see color like this too often. So we're thinking our new crevice garden will be able to hopefully get some seedlings going and get those planted. But yeah, here we are. It's a bit of a steep slope, but there's just all kinds of really cool plants packed in all the different crevices there.
And that's our older dog up in the back, Callie. She's head of security here at the place, and she's 14 and just an amazing dog.
Well, she was head of security, but now she can't hear anything, so that doesn't really help.
Well,
she tries hard anyway.
She barks all the time, so just in case there's something out there.
Right.
But one of the real treats that we saw found it was a new plant to us up in the Olympics, is this little white cushion down below, and it's Sabulina basaltica. And this was given a name change. It used to be Arenaria rossii, but in 2017 they looked at it again and said, no, this is something different. So it's now Sabulina basaltica.
Only found in a very small area in the Olympics, so it's pretty exciting, really, to see this.
And so we kept going back to this spot until finally we hit it right, and there were some seed ripe. So we're pretty stoked about that.
Because we have to do seed everywhere we go, of course. So this is kind of a warm day, and it's been a really hard hike up here. So everybody's just lounging around a little bit.
Yes, it's a pretty unrelenting climb on very steep, shaly grade. So,
but well worth it.
But the result of us going up there so often up into the Olympics was that we were able to contribute to the flora of the Olympics by finding the second known occurrence of this little alpine club moss, Diphasiastrum alpinum.
This used to be Lycopodium, but I've split it all up now.
That's true. And this had only been discovered in the Olympics by Ben Leggett in 2017, I believe. So finding another population on a different part of the range was a lot of fun.
And we're always looking for variations in the wild, no matter where we are, of course. And this is our native Penstemon ovatus, which normally would be these blue purpley colors here and here. But this is a really nice pink one. And so we marked the spot where it was growing and came back and collected a little seed off of it. And we'll see.
Honestly, I don't know if that's as good as the blue ones. The blue ones
you gotta love blue.
Blues are pretty
awesome.
We
have some great patches of the blue one in our garden. There they are, mixed in with Tropiolum polyphyllum from the Andes. So it's kind of a fun mixture.
Yeah, that's a moment of bliss right there.
Okay, we've made a very big jump here.
So this is initially kind of apropos of nothing other than it's the home of the one plant that gave me personally more pleasure for a longer period of time this summer than any other plant on the place. and we'll see it here shortly. But this is we like doing these when we go on vacation. We like doing these walking holidays where you do these incredibly long walks. This is one of the shorter ones, actually. It was only 120 miles on the high
Not in
pass,
all one day.
not in all one day, but all at one time, I guess. So the high pass route in Switzerland, in the Swiss Alps. So this is at the base of the Eiger. So that was just pretty cool to be
Little view of it there.
walking literally in the scree at the bottom of the cliffs. And this is just a little tourist map, but here's the trail, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, really. But we saw growing at the little base of a scree slope. We saw this really cool little plant here.
Yeah, Linaria alpina. What a crazy thing to just be seeing growing in this very sterile environment. There are very few other plants. There weren't many of these, and it just really jumped out. And so it just seemed we were able to, I think we collected 3 seeds and we got 2 to germinate. One died right away, and this single plant went along, and we tucked it as soon as we could into our new crevice garden. And
it's happy as a clam there.
Oh my gosh.
And it just bloomed the entire summer.
I mean, I don't know. I got a big grin on my face right now. That thing just makes me happier than heck.
It's just such a color combination.
And I love orange. It's just so good. What a funny little thing for a toad flax.
And a few more shots of our new crevice garden. It's we're getting a few things planted in it, including some of our Olympic natives and a bunch of other things. And it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is one that we had constructed by Kent and Seth and Paul Spriggs. They're North America's preeminent crevice, the only professional crevice installers on the continent, I believe. And they're just in the process of getting a book that they've written on crevice gardening published. So they're just masters at the craft, and
really nice guys.
And the function of this crevice garden is going to be growing some of those plants, such as we find in the Olympics, that are threatened. It's only going to take a minor tweak in climate change or rainfall patterns, and those plants are gone. But they'll be happy, and we'll be able to keep them going in these crevices. So it's going to be great. And this little gem, this is Monterdella nana. And this is one that one of the members of the board and our taxonomist for the Conservancy, Cody Hinchliffe, one that he collected down in the mountains of Southern California.
But it's been perfectly hardy for us, and it seems to really love the crevice. It's just a diminutive plant.
But the little starburst there is just totally pleasant. And this actually gets down into Baja too, Baja, California.
And so one of the things we do is we bring back plants grown in Europe. Even in Aberconwy Nursery in Wales has actually taken a selection of our American native Penstemon rupicola and named it. Personally, I don't think it's as good a color as the regular rupicola, which is more of a blue, but it's nice to have, and it loves our crevice.
And I recall even more personally that you said that's a hybrid.
Well, it didn't look like rupicola to me. It looks like it's got some other stuff in it. It doesn't have that glaucous foliage. So
yep, you're totally right. Penstemons are incredibly promiscuous, and if you're growing something from seed, and particularly in a cultivated situation, the chances of them being correct are not too good if you have other penstemons around of a similar type. But Aberconwy Nursery, if you're ever in Wales, they're the masters at alpines. It's just you can hardly breathe when you're there. We love Iris unguicularis. This is one that we're really happy to have now in the collection, and it's a winter blooming iris. This is Iris unguicularis Peloponnese snow. It's a Mediterranean species, and fair to guess that this is a Greek selection.
And we brought this back from the UK too, and it bloomed for the first time last year. So it was really fun to see it.
Yeah. And so, speaking of Greek selections, years ago, gosh, it must have been, how old am I? It's 40 years
You're
ago.
old, Kelly.
I'm old. So yeah, probably 40 years ago, I first came across this book, Peonies of Greece. At that time, it was just like incredibly expensive, and I was looking at a friend's. book. And it was just such color plates. And I came to this color plate of Paeonia parnasica with these black, red, deep flowers. And it's like, God, someday I'm going to have that plant somehow.
And sure enough.
And so we got that opportunity from a Czech nurseryman. And so it finally bloomed, and it's
so this was another hotspot of 2020. This bloomed for the first time,
and it was not a disappointment whatsoever.
No, it's just luxurious, that color.
And it bloomed for the first time alongside Paeonia souri, which is gets Italy into Albania
And Greece
species. This was only described as a new species, in 2005. So this has not been recognized as a species until very recently in botanical terms anyway, or time limits. But that's a beauty too. Anyway, I don't have to tell you what color it is. It's right there. So one of the groups of plants that we were focusing on bringing into this country are Roscoea. We already have a pretty large collection of them. We've collected Roscoea on numerous occasions in the wild, both in the Himalaya and China. They're in the true ginger family, in the Zingiberaceae. Unlike a lot of the garden zingibers, these are darn hardy.
Yeah, they kind of almost look like an orchid. They're just so beautiful, and they're easy to grow.
And so we just bring back selections that we don't have, species we don't have, and also do some trading with some of the specialists over there too. This is Roscoea Harvington Imperial Star, and we can tell you exactly what the hybrid is, even though they haven't told us, because we did that.
Just like
we did that same cross, and it looks just like that.
Yeah.
And so they took Roscoea purpurea red gurkha and crossed it with Roscoea purpurea forma alba. And so you get this red color from the red gurkha, and you get those kind of white nectar guidelines from the purpurea alba. So,
yeah, honestly, it's nice to have a lot of the cultivars, which we'll be showing you here.
Oh, yes. Sue's going, come on.
Yeah, you can't spend that much time on each one, but honestly, a lot of the ones that we've hybridized ourselves are just as good. But it is fun to have these. This is a nice one. Really good color on that. And you just gotta love that deep, luscious color, and the name Inkling.
Yeah, that's a good name. And we mulch all our plants in containers with crushed hazelnut shells as a organic means of keeping moss and liverwort at bay, and it helps reduce transpiration or evaporation rather. We don't do toxic pesticides use at all in our production. But nice, long, elegant flower. That big, long labellum, that lower part's awesome.
Yeah, and they really bloom over a long period, because some of the species are quite early, starting in July, and then going right into October. So
that's kind of a different one. I really like that kind of a ruffled edge to the leaf and that pale edge to the labellum.
Yeah, and usually Cotyledons is yellow, so this is a variation.
And gay hussar. For those of you who don't know, a hussar is a 15th century Hungarian light horseman. And they wore elaborate outfits that would have put Prince to shame. Pretty amazing. So I think that's just like so perfect, that name. And that's quite an unusual color for one of the larger flowered species. Yeah, it's different. And lemon sentinel, really, really good. And one of the species, Roscoea forestii, named for George Forrest, amazing Scottish plant hunter in China. Little paler, Longacre sunrise. And Harvington raw silk. A lot of selections are based on Roscoea humiana, and purpurea, both of which have really stout stems, good sized flowers. They're just great parents, and just some really nice ones out there.
a lot of good white ones.
This is one of our crosses that we did. We haven't named it or anything. We're going to evaluate it for a good long while, and but kind of like it.
Okay, now we're making another big jump. Our transitions aren't so great here, but
We're jumping from cultivated plants to wild plants.
that's
so,
right. That's
wow.
right. So this is from 2010, I believe.
Mhm.
We are up at the top of the Shan in the Daoshan in China, and the view from the top was unbelievable. And there were some really interesting plants up there too.
Yeah, it's impossible to ever get tired of the limestone karst
Yes,
in
that
China.
is
Just
true.
amazing. Right on the summit was this small shrubby Stewardia, absolutely loaded in seed capsules. Uh, it's an evergreen species, and it is gorgeous. Those leaf petioles there with that red flange on the leaf petiole. Ugh.
Yeah, we thought that was great until we actually bloomed it, and then oh my God, we had never seen a Stewardia that had this color in it. And we've shown everybody that we can think of to, and nobody's seen this before, so we're not sure if it's a subspecies.
You know,
or
they
a
don't
different
even they don't
species.
even think about whether they've seen it before or try to help us out. They just want to know when they can buy it.
That's true. Well, it is a gorgeous thing. We're not sure if it's going to be hardy here or not yet. We haven't tried it out, but it was at the top of a mountain, so we're hopeful.
But we'll give a shot at figuring it out this year, and you know, whatever species it is, it's going to be the hardiest form of that species because
Right.
it's at the highest
For sure.
point in its range. And that is something we also try to focus on quite a lot, is you know, getting hardier forms of plants that are already in cultivation. But that's nice.
It's stunning. And another plant that we're kind of proud of this year.
Is this one, which when we saw it, we didn't know what it was.
That's true. We're trying to figure out whether it was a rhododendron or a Daphne phyllum, or we kept going through all these different things. And we saw the tree, which had these large nuts at the top, and we're trying to figure that out.
And this again is right up on the summit of the mountain, and you can see that, you know, this is probably 30 to 35 feet tall, but it's not ideal. It's getting wind whipped and beat up there.
Same mountain that the Stewardia was
Right,
from.
Shan.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's a big nut. And one of the fellows, Keith White, we were trying to figure out how to get those off, and he walked up to the tree and just started shaking it, and bump, 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 bump.
Yep, it worked. And we were lucky enough to have one germinate. It's not easy to germinate, and we were the only ones that had got it to go. And as far as we know, we're the only ones in this country that have it.
And certainly this is the we were so excited this last year to see a flower bud developing on it. It's the first time it's flowered anywhere in the world in cultivation, and what an awesome plant.
Yeah.
This has great potential to be hardy in kind of milder gardens here in the Northwest for sure, but be an awesome plant down in California. But you know, it's going to be like never before this becomes available.
And it's known from fossil records.
Yes.
In North America, so it's a relic.
Right. And so this really is, and it's a rare plant in China. There's like isolated populations of this. They're also kind of like Pleistocene glacial refugia populations. And the Chinese have recognized like 5 sort of races of this. And, you know, we've observed it 2 or 3 different times in different populations, and they do look different actually a little bit. So agree with them on that. But we were going to hand pollinate it, and we brought out the little paintbrushes and a ladder, and we saw the bees working on it, and they're going to do a better job than us.
Yeah, and then we were nervous all summer that these were going to break off because they just got so big, but we managed to get 6 of them to ripen.
Yeah, it's awesome. So,
Yeah.
you know, 2 or 3 years, we'll see if we get anything coming up. It's going to take a while.
Yeah. And we got around to transplanting our original plant a few years ago and went, oh my God, look at the roots on these. And they're kind of primitive.
Yeah, they're really, really spongy. And these are the broken off root tips on it, and they're incredibly spongy. And that didn't really make sense to us until our last trip to China. We saw huge trees, 70-foot trees of diplopanics growing in kind of this boggy area, and these roots are going to want to spread out real wide to give it some stability. And sometimes you'll see spongy type roots in wet situations.
It certainly wasn't wet where it was on where we found the original one, but we've seen it in wetter spots since.
Yeah, and this is from our most recent trip to China, and this was right on the Vietnam Yunnan border, and it was just really interesting to see this primula. And then 200 meters higher, we saw what looked to be the same primula, but was different. And we thought that was incredibly interesting because in North Vietnam, we saw the same two species with the same elevation separation on Mount Fancy Pan, the highest mountain in Vietnam.
Well, it makes sense. This mountain was right on the border, so.
And it was the northern extension of that same
right.
Hoang Lan mountain range. So yeah, it does make sense, but still it was really cool to see.
It was.
And here is one blooming. This is the first flowering on that. And it looks almost identical to Petalatii, not quite. So we've got to have an expert weigh in on that or do some more research ourselves. But you can see Petalatii on the right-hand side. And the other one is just different.
Yeah, it's different. I think it's got to be something different, or at least a different variety, maybe.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we've just it doesn't take long for us to be smitten by a new group of plants, and having Steve Hootman along with us from the Rhododendron Species Botanic Garden doesn't help because he loves these guys too. So all the gesneriids, African violet relatives, have just become another passion because there's so many interesting ones in Asia.
Yeah, and this one we haven't even gotten it down to genus yet. At first we thought it was a loxostigma, but the floral arrangement doesn't seem quite right. So we'll see. It's amazing how even though the pandemic last year gave us enough time to go hiking in midweek, it didn't leave us much time any other day of the week, just trying to keep going, with various challenges imposed.
Well, we had a great year in mail order, thanks to everybody who bought plants from us. So it kept us hopping. But yeah, it's a beautiful
Yeah, it's
flower.
a nice thing. I probably won't have a shred of hardiness, but really cool plant.
So this is just kind of an example of another gesneriid, but one of the things that I do most of the photography, though Kelly does some too. But I have this app on my phone, and this gives the GPS coordinates and the actually most of the time I do it in meters, but this is showing it in feet. So this is, and then you can label the photo, and it's pretty handy for field work. You're already getting partway there on field work.
Yeah, it's great. You've got a lot of good information that you're not going to lose if you just are writing it down. And sometimes it takes a while before you can get to have good computer access. So that's really nice. And the only thing we added physically for this program in terms of text was just the name, Loxostigma, probably Griffithii. CF is simply botanical shorthand. It's Latin for confer. So it's just compare to that species. So compare this plant to true Griffithii and see if it makes sense.
And begonias have been another group of plants that seemingly have endless varieties and species, and we really saw some beautiful ones on this last trip.
Yeah, and this is all variations of the same species, whatever that might be. Kind of like that one. That's kind of moody.
I like them all. That's the trouble.
But we did end up with a fairly nice one. So you never, when you grow things from seed, you never know what you're going to get. So
stained glass looking through that. And it flowered for us last year, so that was exciting.
And one of our favorite conservancy members down in Florida is a begonia nut. So we had to make sure to put some of those in. And this was growing with that earlier one too, in the same area. So one of the palmate leafed types, or
Really handsome plant.
yeah.
Yeah, you can just go on and on. I mean, what's not to like
And
about
so
that
these
as
leaves
well?
are nearly pressed to the moss on that bank of this begonia. They're very short petioles to the leaves, and a handsome thing. Little variation too in the wild. You can see it just resting right there in the moss.
And texturally, it's really interesting
Yeah.
too.
But again, we ended up with a winner, so happy about that. Good form, and those hairs. And this is actually better than it looks. Focusing more on the flower. This was the first time I didn't even think about trying to get a picture of the foliage in, but especially the new foliage. You can see on the bottom left-hand corner, it's very mottled with these pale cloudy patterns, and those leaves are very stiff. A lot of substance to them, so it comes from a really rocky area. So it's a tough little dude.
Oh, a whole nother group.
Oh boy, heteropolygonatums. So these are allied to polygonatums, differing genetically, differing in that they not only have flowers in the leaf axils, but they also have flowers at the terminus. Most Solomon seals, except for a handful of evergreen species, lack flowers in the terminus. These are nearly always epiphytic, growing in trees. Sometimes they can fall off and be growing on moss in the rocks underneath or nearby, but cool plant, maybe 15 species known, not well understood.
Not the showiest, except I love this one. The foliage on this is incredible.
And these are plants that, in fact, I'll back up. These are plants that are one of our consulting taxonomists, Dr. Aaron Floden, he's at Missouri Botanic Garden, sent us. And Heteropolygonatum marmoratum is one that he described as a new species. So really great to have that. That is so pretty though.
Mm-hmm.
However, both of those species really pale in comparison to this. Aaron asked us when we went to Vietnam, he asked us, do keep an eye out for Heteropolygonatum. There has to be some there. And I know people have been looking for them. And this was literally a half hour into
our first day in the field.
And there it was. So, I mean, at that rate, we thought we'd probably find, several dozen new species, but this was the only one we saw.
But it is a new species, so that's pretty darn exciting. And you can see it is growing on the tree trunk as well as down in this rock cleft here.
And actually a little more vigorous when it has a little more root room, but incredibly perfect drainage is, I think, the key on this. And we're really excited to see it. Very excited to see it that it had fruit. So that makes it easy. And here it is flowering for the first time. Heteropolygonatum species nova.
Yeah, Aaron came to visit and he took just a little chunk of the leaf and ran DNA on it. And sure enough, it is new. Yeah, a little piece of leaf size of a very small little fingernail. It was great and very distinct from the other, genetically quite distinct from the other species. So important piece of information. And so, of course, he needed to look at flowers to be able to formally describe this. And it was really hard to cut off one of the two flowering stalks and press them and send them, but we did. And so there it is. We've got, flower parts here. And this is a little cataphyll off the developing growth bud. So, yeah, so that's pretty fun. And there's the fruit. And so recently we've acquired a pretty exciting dissecting microscope for doing identification where you need to see, well, is it a stellate hair or what, and really get down to it. And it's this. And so this is the first, really the first photo, first time we used it. Cody Hinchliffe came over and set up the microscope because he's quite familiar with them. Something about having a PhD in botany. That helps. Yeah, it helps. And so he took these photos with the microscope
camera body mounted to the microscope and a laptop hooked up to it.
And sent them off to Aaron, and he was quite pleased with the detail, and that'll help him because he's currently describing this species.
Yeah, this week he's working
Yeah.
on it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And he's really excited about seeing this. And this was, oh, good job on that stipulate bract. Because generally, in herbarium specimens, they've dried up and fallen off, or you never get to see it. So that's a diagnostic feature.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting having
And
this.
yeah, and then we took the seeds out, cleaned them really well, and because sometimes there's structures on there that can be diagnostic, and while it's not diagnostic, it's really interesting to see this kind of dimpled surface on the seed coat. So that was interesting.
And we're in Vietnam again. Just doing another little jaunt. This is much further into the trip, and we're climbing up to the top of this knoll.
That's not me, although I wish I had that thick of hair. That's our frequent traveling companion on these adventures, Tom Hudson from Cornwall, who has an unparalleled collection of woody plants at his place called Tregrain.
Well worth a visit. If
Probably the best private collection of temperate woody plants in the world. And Tregrain's been going for 300 years gardening on site there. So it's amazing.
And they've got that great climate with the Gulf Stream, so he can grow just about anything.
And so we're going up to this little ridge top, and it doesn't look like much, and it's very
steep.
small. It's steep, yeah. Yeah, it's steep. And we get up to the top, and on the way up, we're meeting local villagers coming down with huge bundles of firewood in their backpack baskets. And they've already cut the big stuff down on this slope long ago.
And the whole time we were on this ridge top, we could hear chainsaws going. Just so who knows what's left there now.
And so now they're taking the smaller plants for firewood. But this is Steve Hoopman, curator and director at the Rhododendron Species Botanic Garden, and he is a bit transfixed in place because he's all about ericaceous plants. I mean, his botanic garden is devoted solely to the genus Rhododendron, but he is mad about Vaccinium, and he's really mad about Agapetes, which is a close relative to Vaccinium. And we weren't sure and he wasn't sure, more he than us, that whether this was a Vaccinium or an Agapetes, but these big bracts that were surrounding the red fruit, single red fruit were quite amazing.
Yeah, quite diagnostic, really. So here it is. We got it to germinate from seed, and it's bloomed here. I don't think Steve's had his bloom yet, but we were lucky enough to have it bloom this year, and it's an Agapetes.
And he was really, really excited to see that. And all the research he's done, he can't find anything close to it. So he thinks it's a new species, and
really handsome little plant.
Really fun. And one of the quick separators on Agapetes from Vaccinium is Vaccinium are usually more urn-shaped little flowers, and these are longer flowers that are ribbed. Oh, that's awesome. Beautiful plant. And that should have a little bit of hardiness anyway. Should be hardy here. Sue's showing me the clock. Oh, we started late though, honey. And so this is also in Vietnam. This is in the Shima. This is in the Camellia family. And this was one that we collected seed of on the second highest mountain in Vietnam, Phu Luong, one that very few people have been to.
Why would they want to go? It took us
God, it was misery.
15 hours to get up there. But anyway, another story.
Yeah, that's a good story though. Anyway, but the foliage is just dynamite, and this will be that'll be a pretty big tree too. So small white flowers in all likelihood. So we've been to heteropolygonatum. Now we're into polygonatum, and we'll just show you
just a couple species.
A couple of them. So this is a new species. This has not been described yet. This is one that Peter Zale of Longwood Gardens collected in Myanmar, and sent us. He was gracious enough to send us seed of several of his collections there, and we've had very good luck with this, which is good because apparently it does not like
The heat and humidity of
Pennsylvania, because he lost his. So
well, and that's part of what we try to do with the Conservancy too, is to share our plants to other botanic gardens and individuals, and because things don't always grow the best here, and it was a great example of we were lucky that we had the plant too, so we can share it back if he wants it back.
Yeah, a nursery mentor of mine once told me, Steve Doonan of Grand Ridge Nursery, great friend, told me, he said, you know, the best way to save a plant is to give it away.
Yeah, right.
If you want to keep it, give it away. So, because you'll get some back when you lose yours. This is in the same group, really. This is one that Aaron Floden collected not too long ago, 2016 or 17, I think. This is another evergreen species from the Eastern Himalaya. This is one that he described, Polygonatum luteo verrucosum. Luteo, the yellow flowers, and verrucosum. So it's got little warts all over the flowers. They're quite rough or varicose. So I like it when names make sense.
That's right. And it's really a handsome plant.
And the fruit.
And it's gotten really pretty fruit.
We're just going through the program, refreshing ourselves. Well, refreshing ourselves. We finished it like 3 hours ago. But
that's typical, though.
But we hadn't noticed the bird nest here in the greenhouse in one of the pots. We have we have
that happen a lot.
Lot of birds nesting in the greenhouse.
Extremely bird friendly.
Makes it really hard to get work done or water until they're gone a lot of times. But yeah, that's just really beautiful fruit on that, but evergreen. So it remains to be seen how hardy this will be. I would typically say, no, it doesn't have a prayer. We have an evergreen species, Polygonatum menxense subspecies tonkinense. That's an epiphyte growing in the trees in North Vietnam that's been out in our open garden since 2013, been down to 10 degrees.
It still holds its evergreen foliage.
Doesn't show a speck of damage. Yep. It's freaky.
You just never know. You just got to keep trying.
And this is one of our recent collections too. And this it has every appearance of being a menxense, but the flowers are wrong and the foliage is a little off. These are urceolate flowers, so they're urn-shaped rather than longer. So this is kind of in the area that's kind of intermediate between classic menxense and classic Polygonatum urceolatum.
Yeah.
So maybe this is like an intermediate population. So that's going to be interesting when Aaron spins up the sequencing on it.
And just a little vignette of some ericemas that we've found over the years. This is certainly one of the prettiest. This is from Taiwan, fall blooming species.
Yeah, quite incredible. Last year it had just a single flower, but we thought it merited inclusion by doing a double this year, or this past year.
Yeah. And on the last time we went to China, we saw some fall blooming species as we were hiking along, and just really striking foliage. I don't think they have a prayer of being hardy, but it was just fun to see them in the wild.
A real heavy substance to the leaves. Flowers were lovely, even though a lot of times they'd be somewhat obscured by the foliage. But, you know, sometimes there's something to be said for having to make the effort to part the leaves, to really appreciate that. You know, there's people have gotten to where they just have to have everything out there bigger and brighter than ever before, and subtleties and effort, and I don't know, there's a lot to be said for it. But here it is. We doing well, surviving, and looking great. So hopefully we'll get some seed set on that.
That'd be great.
This one, we just, this is one from Sichuan, and quite some time ago that we've collected and have not taken the time to key out satisfactorily, but lovely foliage.
Certainly looks like a dilatatum wilsoni type.
Yeah, it's lacking the sort of the dilated spadix, and the flowers don't seem to quite fit with wilsoni, but it's in that alliance, certainly. But cool thing. And a friend gave us this. Claire Cockcroft had some seedlings that a rock garden member, Saori, gave her. and she thought we might do better with it than her. She was getting worried because Sayori, who is Japanese, told her this is very rare in Japan, and it's seed she'd gotten from Japan. So Erythema cuculatum, pretty little thing.
It's a sweet little thing.
Yeah, and it's turned into a good plant. So yeah, we're pretty happy with it. And this is one that Peter Zale also collected in Myanmar. And we struggled with this thing. We kept it on the barest edge of life for years. And it finally, in the last 2 years, has decided, well,
okay, I'm going to do it.
Yep, I'm going to grow.
It actually bloomed this year. It's not a showy flower, but
we were hopeful, watching this. It's like, oh, this could be good,
It didn't really get any bigger than that. Not much.
It could be good, but, it's a collector's plant. So, that just means that if you ever get a chance to sell them being a collector's plant, you get to charge a lot more for them.
Okay.
And so this is Longia petiole name for this kind of extra long leaf petiole on the central leaflet. So, little botanical thing there. Yeah.
Well, photinias, why do you want to collect a photinia? But this is actually really a handsome one with the fruit and the contrast with the foliage.
Yeah, and it's a deciduous species. So this is the fall color. And we wouldn't have collected it, but it was one that we were collecting a few seed of for a friend. And as I reached up and pulled just a little bit off the plant, because I didn't personally really want it. I turned around on this sloping rock and my feet went out from underneath me. And rather than throw the seed away, I held them up in the air and didn't break my fall and broke a rib. So that kind of
made the rest of the trip interesting.
That was horrible.
So it better be a good plant.
So we kept some, kept a couple.
Okay, we'll keep a couple as a memory anyway of that.
But it really is a lovely thing.
And then nice.
And then the leaves drop and you still have the fruit there. So yeah, Photinia bouvardiana. So this is
Kelly in his chops phase.
Yep.
That was his COVID chops phase.
Right. And so Sargentadox is a little oddball, it's scarcely in cultivation. There's a handful of nuts who have this in their collection, although it's fairly widespread throughout China and into Indonesia or Indochina, Myanmar, Vietnam.
But not common.
And we've seen it a couple times, but never was able to find it in fruit. And we were able to get a cutting from a friend in England. And that was awesome off of and it came from the same plant that we had seen in North Vietnam. So it's almost as good as finding seed. And so we had this basically this stick and we buried it sideways because he'd learned the hard way. That's how to do it. And it just rooted from along the stem.
The nodes, yeah.
But now I'm trying to figure out how to, what size pot to put it in, because it's not much plant for the big pot that it would seemingly take. But
we've managed to get it going, and it's doing well.
And part of the reason it might be it might be scarce in Asia is that it's an incredibly important medicinal plant.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's why.
And they cut the woody stems and make them into discs. It's a vine. So this was super fun to see. This is Magnolia amabilis.
Yeah, we're always on the hunt for magnolias. It's such a great group.
And this is really, it's a very small plant. It's a shrubby one, I don't think we saw anything that was higher than 6 feet. Some good leaf variation. And those little buds looking almost exactly like, it could be levifolia. You would think it would be Magnolia levifolia. And it's going to have small white scented flowers. Beautiful thing. But the diagnostic thing, Dick Figler, who's the Magnolia North American expert on magnolias, one of the world experts, He developed a magnolia key based on stipule scarring on the leaf petiole. Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's right.
So here's the petiole off of Magnolia levifolia. Both of these are. And if you look, here's a little flattened part where there is a little, the little bed for the stipule.
So this is Magnolia amabilis. The stipule scar only goes halfway up the petiole, whereas in labifolia, which is the more common magnolia, it goes all the way up.
So there you go.
So we sent him a photo, and he said, "Yeah, that's what you've got is amabilis." So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah,
Almost exciting as this.
yeah, but not nearly, really. So this is another magnolia that we managed to acquire seeds of in 2012, and it had its first bloom last year, which is really exciting. And this is not in cultivation, so except for those of you who've maybe gotten shared a few around over the years, but
Yeah, and few plants in our collection have had as many names put on it as this one.
that's true.
The Chinese regard all the evergreen magnolias, most of them are as Michelias or Michelias. Some are Mangletias, but North American and other folks just put them all into magnolia. So there's that, and then we thought, oh, it might be Glaucophila. No, so anyway, it flowered.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay. We knew that it was going to be something in this color range because Quarry Hill Botanic Garden had gotten one from us, and they flowered theirs a year earlier than we did because they're warmer than we are. And
yeah, theirs was actually flowering 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's really early.
Ours
yeah,
is still in tight bud.
Yeah, but we're going to have a bunch of flowers this year.
Yeah, their
So
first flowering had 35 flowers. Our first flowering had this
One.
flower. So,
hey.
but the cool
One
thing
is
is we're gonna with Bill McNamara, who's the former director at Quarry Hill, invited us to co-author a article for Curtis's Botanical magazine on this magnolia because it is quite the deal. It's rare to introduce a new species of such a major ornamental tree genus, such as magnolia, to cultivation. I mean, that's just great. So
very exciting.
Yep. This isn't as exciting, although we like it. This is a Lysomachia from China. We have no idea what it is yet. We don't think it's going to be especially hardy.
But the foliage is really beautiful.
We sat down to key it out in the flora of China and called up Lysomachia and saw that, the number of species in China are in the 3 figures. So we put it aside.
Yeah, we'll try again. Maybe now with our microscope, we'll be able to figure it out. But it is handsome.
And this is Lysomachia piriformis stenophila, just meaning narrow leaf. And this is a Jens and Remy Nilsson collection, perhaps the best collection of this species, honestly. And and this is in cultivation, and it's not a. We'll keep it as a conservancy plant because it's of documented wild origin, but it's well established
really
in cultivation.
In gardens, and we've sold a lot of this over the year because it's so pretty.
But one that is not particularly known here in this country is this broader leaf form, Piriformis piriformis, and this is one that we brought in from the UK very recently. So that's a very handsome thing as well.
And believe it or not, this is in the Aster family, in the Asteraceae, this crazy little plant here.
Yeah, so this is from Vietnam. This is from that ridge that they were kind of working on logging and cutting for firewood that we were on earlier. Ainslea elegans, really handsome thing. Sometimes when you get something in the wild, of seed, all you're seeing are like a dried little husk of something, and you don't have a clue if it's going to be of merit. Well, this certainly seems to me to be of merit and bearing close inspection of the flowers, because those tepals or petals are just these little corkscrews. How fun.
Yeah, it really is. And the foliage is really soft to kind of, yeah, there it is. It's a very soft underside.
Oh, you could just like make slippers out of those or something. They're
Yeah.
just really, really cush felt. Psychopsis sinensis in the witch hazel family, or Hamamellidaceae. It's an evergreen member of that. This is our collection from China. These can be small trees, honestly, easily 25, 30 feet. And they're quite hardy. It's been through 10 degrees out here without out a whimper. And, it's not a rare plant in cultivation, but, it's good for botanists, taxonomy, and just a genetic diversity to have documented collections from various parts of its range. So it's an important species that way.
And this Symplochus, which is one of our collections, that bloomed this year, and it just was like, wow, now that is really beautiful. And it's in its own family, which I didn't realize until today when I looked it up. But
Yeah, we just wanted to verify it, and it's in the Symplocaceae. Used to be, back when we first saw them in the wild, I think they're in the Aquafoliaceae. But anyhow, quite a cool thing.
Really handsome blue fruit and good flowers, actually. But yeah, there's the fruit.
Yeah, we were just smitten by it when we saw it in the wild, and
yes, it was just covered in this blue fruit.
Totally,
right at
totally,
the top of a mountain.
Totally leafless. This blue fruit, we couldn't. The fog was down so thick that we couldn't see 20 feet in front of us. But these really were amazing plants. Oh, that's lovely. Why wouldn't you want that? And that should be pretty hardy.
I would think.
Yeah.
It's out in our windswept area.
Yeah, that might even get down to 6 easily enough. So this is back in Vietnam on an obscure little ridge where new heteropolygonatum was found, and we saw this evergreen clematis, and we saw those achenes, and it reminded us of one that we had collected years earlier in China, and which proved to be Clematis phanetiana. This might be Myenniana. But it's in the same group if it's not that, but the achenes the seeds were just identical.
It has the distinction of being the first collection we made on that trip, 001. And it's a handsome little thing.
Little flowers, every time we see a vaguely Clematis armandii like species, we're going, this is going to have these big flowers and just a ton of them. And invariably, we get these lovely little flowers, sparingly produced. This is one of Aaron Floden's collections in China, and this could have been an Armandii. In fact, he had it as a possibly Armandii, but we've got 7 plants, and they do vary a bit in leaf, so they're worth, that's the beauty of seed. But he thinks it could well be Henryi. Smaller flowers and more delicate. They're quite good. We'll see how this cold blast hits us. We had it come through the winter last year outside, no problem, but it's got really soft growth right now, and we're going to get cold.
And speaking of another one that is actually blooming right now in the garden, and this is Clematis urophylla, and this is really another evergreen one, but really handsome in flower.
Yeah, that was in flower in December here, and what a treat to have. This is again a Chinese collection of ours, and that should be fine. And so this is a collection from years back in Taiwan, and it finally flowered for us. And at first it's like, oh well, it's a yellow one, but it is the most fragrant of any of the clones we have.
Much more fragrant than any of the name clones.
Even more fragrant, I think, than that big flowered one we have called Nioi, which Nioi in Japanese means scented. So, this is good. This is really great. We saw this. This is a cutting from a plant we saw in Vietnam.
The last day in Vietnam.
This is Huodendron tomentosum. Huodendron's a really great little evergreen genus related to styrax. And
This had just beautiful. It was a beautiful tree with incredible bark.
oh, just smooth, just like, I don't know, like a coffee, mocha coffee or something. They're really wonderful. But anyway, one of our traveling companions got cuttings home, and when we visited him overseas, uh, gave us a cutting, and we got it to, we were able to bring it home and get all the, come through customs and everything. And so got it to go, and we're stoked. Probably the only plant in North America of that species.
And just a little golf area that we saw on our last trip to China, which had both flowers and fruit at the same time. And this one was actually fruiting in our greenhouse, and just kind of an interesting fruit and beautiful foliage with glaucous underside to the leaf.
Yeah, and this is one that Steve Hoopman keyed out, and it's like, this is great. This isn't in cultivation. So, and we'll have pictures of this in the wild when we do our talk on China in a couple weeks,
That's right.
as well as other little goodies, of course. And so we're getting near the end here.
Yes, we're wrapping up.
And this is on, we were the first Westerners to climb this mountain. This is the second highest mountain in Southeast Yunnan, and it forms exactly part of the Vietnam-Chinese border. The border runs right through the summit. And that was third hardest day we've had in the field, probably. That was awful. But anyway, we got to the top. And so this is right on the summit. And this is just a dense thicket of plants up here.
Yeah, there's Scheffleras up there. And
yep, and there's rhododendrons. And it was just
all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of stuff.
And Tom spotted this sorbus, this mountain ash growing up there with this big, thick foliage with just amazing indimentum. We'd never seen anything like it.
And and so he says so he took a twig sample and some leaf samples for specimens, and took them back to England for a sorbus expert and dendrologist to look at, Keith Rushforth. And Keith Rushforth has taken sorbus mountain ash and split it into several different genera, which makes perfect sense because you've got the entire leaved ones, you've got the pinnate leaved ones. They're in North America, Europe, Asia. I mean, it's got to be more happening there than sorbus. And so this, he says, is a new species, and he's going to have to wait to see flowers to confirm that and properly describe it. But provisionally, he's placing it in the new genus Griffithera, and
we got it to germinate.
Oreda.
Tom gave us all the seeds because we generally do better with seeds than he does. And he took those couple cuttings and had them grafted. And so we've got 6 seedlings coming along, and we're very excited about it, as is Tom.
Because his sticks might not work. So
yeah.
So this will be great. So we'll get this up to size, and then we'll be able to send some flowers to Keith and have it formally described. And then this is really what lights us up. I mean, this is one plant on this one mountaintop, which makes us believe that in adjacent mountains, they could well exist. The highest mountain was the one that we really wanted to go to, but it took 7 days to get to the top from the nearest access point. We just simply did not have that much time. But, this is, there's pressure, human pressure is just beyond belief. But anyway, we're wrapping it up. This is
our place. Just a really incredibly spectacular sunset over our little pond.
Oh, it's like that every night, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, it is wonderful being at home in a lot of ways. We do miss traveling, and we miss seeing all of you. But it is really great to have this kind of thing happening. And it's also, we have our little pod because we have this giant fire pit. And so we're able to have a few people over and have big fires and sit around the fire, socially distant, and still get to see our friends.
And so we're the only place that we all can get together in a safe manner, and they are all so darned grateful.
Right.
And plus we're the only place in the city limits that has a fire ring big enough to burn whole pallets in. So
yep. So it's worked out well, and thanks for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed it.
And most especially, thank you for your ongoing support these years, which
Yes.
has allowed us to form this
I
nonprofit,
agree.
allowed us to make these collecting trips to Asia, to Europe, and allowed us to distribute plants where they need to be distributed to. So thank you so much for
thank
that.
you. We really
Sue
appreciate
and
it.
Kelly, we do have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
So there's
We're
a question.
ready.
We're ready. So there is a question. Folks would like to know again who the crevice installers are.
Kenton Seth, he's out of Colorado, and Paul Spriggs, he's up in
He's
Victoria.
in Victoria, BC. Yeah, yeah, they're great guys. I'm sure they're Rock Garden Society members. They just did a big crevice garden day virtual conference on last Saturday, actually, and they both spoke. But yeah, they're wonderful.
Yeah, and you could probably find information about them by going directly to the NARG's North American Rock Garden Society website, and I think does he have like a Facebook group, Crevice Garden?
Yes, there is a Facebook
Right.
group. Just I
Maybe.
would type in crevice gardening, and you'll find it. There's a lot of stuff about them out there now.
Yeah, they've done. I know Paul last year was over in Scotland in Inverview doing a crevice garden over there, and Kenton was in New Zealand doing a crevice garden over there.
And we did a
down there.
workshop here that some of you attended, and it was great fun. And we actually have not finished the crevice garden, and because of COVID, they weren't able to come back last year. But we're planning to get them back again, hopefully this year. If not this year, then the year after to finish it, and we'll probably do some more gatherings.
Yeah,
So,
we hope so.
yeah.
Yeah, we might be able to put that link in the next newsletter, so people, the link to the organization, so people can find it.
Sure, we can
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
well, yeah, we'll figure that
Yeah.
out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now this one, you guys know that I don't pronounce things well. Did you plant the Diplo oryx roots and grow them out?
Panics.
Yeah, Diplopanic stachyanthes.
Oh, sure. Did you plant them and grow them with any success?
Well, we collected. I think we had half a dozen seeds from that collection that we flowered that plant of, and of those seeds, we only got one to germinate. They're notoriously poor germinators. Regeneration in the wild is not very good, and it's very slow.
So we have those 6 seeds that we produced this year from the one plant.
Correct.
Planted. They haven't germinated
Oh, right,
yet.
right.
But we did.
It may be 2 or 3 years before they germinate
We
too.
did bring back some seeds from a different trip that we took, our last trip to China, from another population where the trees were much larger and kind of at the base of the mountain rather up on the top. And
So-
some of those have started to germinate. So it seems to be a little bit easier germinator than the mountaintop one.
Yeah, and they're slightly different shaped seeds as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the subspecies.
Yeah, and it's and this would be from a subtropical situation, and we're honestly a little less interested in that than that original one that's at the highest point of
Right,
its range.
yeah.
So
But
anyway,
we'll see. Who knows?
yeah. Yeah, it's a curious thing. It's originally I think it's been in so many different families. I mean, it felt great that we didn't know what it was when we got home from originally seeing it in China. We sent pictures to we sent photos to Tony Kirkham, who's in charge of the trees at Kew. No, I don't know what that is, and we sent pictures to Mark Flanagan, who's keeper of the Windsor Great Park, the Queen's gardener, brilliant guy. And he says, well, try looking in the Styracaceae. And we wrote back, well, it's evergreen, Mark. And there's there's no evergreen styrax. So yeah, it's kind of curious. So it's been in the Nisaceae, it's been in the Aureliaceae, and now it's, at least for now, it's in a little more obscure genus called the Mastixiaceae. And interestingly, the only person that we've ever told about this that knew what it was, we happened to be at a party with Kirk Johnson, who's the Sant director at the Smithsonian, because he was here speaking with Ray Troll. And so we were telling him about it because he's a
fossil guy.
Yeah, he's a paleobotanist.
Yeah.
And so we said diplopanics, and he says, I know exactly what that is. So it's like, that was so exciting.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Any other questions? We good?
Well, we hope you folks can join us for our upcoming talks. I know we've got plant hunting in China, and
Oh, I can see that there's information
and then we'll
right
be
there
doing
about Kenton,
following
so.
that, we'll be doing Argentina, so which
Yeah,
was
hope
last March.
That's right. Yeah. So thanks for joining us tonight, especially you folks from the East Coast staying up so late, and hopefully those that missed it will get a chance to watch it in the next couple of weeks when we have a recording up.
Yeah, and really great to see some faces, and when there's not faces, really great to see some names that we
That's right. Yeah.
that we particularly enjoy.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. We really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it.